Hello, welcome to the Stunting Investor. My name's Alima Dorsey, and I'm your host. I'm a stunt coordinator, action actress, second unit director, and as most people know, there is a strike happening right now with SAG-AFTRA and also the writers. And as everyone knows, we actually just finished with COVID a couple of years ago. So if you aren't someone who really knew how to save money or invest, or if you weren't an actual working performer, then you might be having some issues right now financially. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to create this podcast. I wanted to actually be able to teach or help people who come from extraordinary, non traditional backgrounds, such as actors, models, stunt performers, directors, writers, military, athletes. And I wanted to share some information on how you can establish passive income, different vehicles that you can use to establish that passive income, and how to create financial freedom during and after your career. So today I have an amazing guest. His name is Brandon Thompson. Come on in, Brandon. He's sliding on in right
Slide
quick.
right in here.
Yeah. Brandon is an ex is was in the Marine Corps, and he was a pilot in the Marine Corps, and he is now a real estate investor. So I just wanted to kind of bring him on so he can tell you a little bit about his background, and his transition into real estate investing, why he chose real estate investing, some of his ups and downs, and a lot of his successes, and just hopefully be able to help anyone out there who's coming from a job that maybe didn't have a retirement plan or 401k, or someone who just wanted to establish passive income but wasn't really in the right field to do so, how you too can now establish passive income so you can have financial freedom whenever there's a pandemic, or if there's another strike, or if you get hurt, you should still be able to make money and survive and live and thrive even when you're not working. So Brandon, come on in and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like you were talking about, I've been a Marine for about 10 and a half years now. I actually just got out this June. But I started in December 2012. Started my flight training career right after the basic school, which is pretty much like an orientation for new second lieutenants, which is the first ranking officer in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for about 6 months, and I had an aviation contract during that time frame. So what that meant was I was guaranteed a spot in flight training. So I did that for about 3 year period. I got to fly all the training aircraft in the Marine Corps. It was a special case. Not many people get to do that,
No.
but yeah. So I flew the single engine, helicopters, multi-engine, and then I got into Ospreys ultimately, which is the MV-22, which takes off like a helicopter and flies like an airplane.
Insane.
Yeah, so that was definitely the most unique aircraft that I've flown, and I've been flying actually since 2009.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I was actually pursuing my dreams right out of high school, pretty much. So I started flying in college at New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell. So I used Roswell International to pick up my private pilot's license because what I wanted to do was I wanted to be the best pilot ever, right? So I wanted to start as early as I could.
Yeah.
So I started that, got my private pilot's license from there. I actually transferred over to a school called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, awesome. So I actually chose the Daytona Beach option,
Nice.
which was fantastic.
Oh, I bet. The beach, the sun, the girls.
Every time you go up,
Yeah.
it was like, oh, this is beautiful.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, so it was fantastic. I got my commercial pilot's license from there. And then I went into the military. So I went through the NROTC commissioning source.
Mm-hmm.
Or I used NROTC as a commissioning source. And then I went over to TBS and then back to where we started. So then now I was flying as an Osprey pilot and wanted to transition over to real estate investing.
Well, first of all, I want to say how great it is that you actually knew what you wanted to do at such a young age, because most people, when they're young, they have no idea. And then the second thing is that you actually, it seems like you put a plan together so that you can actually reach your goals.
Mm-hmm.
So that already sets you apart from a lot of other people. And then you being an African American male with these specific goals, it's so amazing because you don't see that as often as we would like.
Right.
So did your parents influence you as far as you becoming a pilot in the Marine Corps?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my dad was the biggest advocate for it. So I could definitely tell from early age, he wanted me to become a pilot because we went to so many air shows. I'm from the Southern California area, and
Awesome.
Miramar Airport was so
Mm-hmm.
close to us. I guess it was like a 2.5 hour drive from us. So anytime there was a air show that was being hosted, he'd always take us over to it. So I got to see the Blue Angels a lot.
Oh, that's
I
so
got
cool.
to, yeah, all these flight demonstration
Yeah.
teams. So I was just so accustomed to just jets flying over, all these airplanes. I mean, like C-130s, like the Cobras, the helicopters, right? Like all the explosions, right? It just like appealed to my masculinity. Like I wanted to do this,
Yeah,
right? I
absolutely.
wanted to blow things up. I wanted to go fast. I
Yeah.
wanted to do everything, right?
Yeah.
So I grew up with that. And then after a while, he gave me a discovery flight, which is your first flight in an aircraft, which was a Cessna one. I think it
Mm.
was at that time it was a 152, which is one of the smaller single engine planes.
I was learning on a Cherokee Piper, I think
Oh,
150.
really?
So yeah. So
Okay.
I'm very
Yeah.
familiar with that.
It's a slow cruise for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, absolutely.
But it gets the job done because I
Yeah.
mean, like you don't have to worry about highways. You don't have to worry about congestion.
Yeah.
You just take off and your VFR, which is visual flight rules, which means I mean, like as long as you know how to navigate, like you're going
good.
there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't go into clouds. Don't run into mountains.
Yeah.
You're fine.
You're good.
Yeah.
So it's interesting though, because you have such a passion for flying.
Mhm.
Why didn't you pursue it even after you left the Marine Corps? What actually made you decide to actually go into real estate and not maybe become a commercial pilot?
Right. And I get that question asked all the time. Like, you have all the credentials for it. Why not just go into it?
Mhm.
And to be honest, I have thought about it. I would like to actually go up and get paid like the $300,000 and
Yeah.
then only work 2 weeks out of the month. Like that sounds awesome. I know that there's going to be a long way to get there
Mhm.
because I mean that's reserved for like the higher status and the longevity that you have within the company.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it wasn't truly as fulfilling as real estate.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is I could help out a lot of people with real estate and I could actually personally see how I'm affecting their lives.
Mhm.
Whereas with piloting, yeah, you are helping people, but it's kind of like a service. It's kind of like, and no offense to anybody who is, but like a taxi driver or a bus driver, where you're just providing a service that's a commodity. Okay, cool, thank you, and I'm out. But with real estate, you could actually significantly change somebody's life,
Mhm.
and then I could actually profit off of that experience where it's not taking advantage of anybody.
Yeah.
What it is I'm providing a service, I'm helping them in the process, and then with that process, I'm profiting with it.
Absolutely.
So I could get an uncapped income level just because I'm actually helping other people.
Mhm.
And not only can I actually go far above 300,000 that the commercial airlines could provide.
Sky's the limit.
Exactly.
Literally.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like looking forward to building a wealth that me or my family have never even seen before.
Yeah.
And then fulfilling myself in the process, where it's just commercial airlines can't really give that
Okay.
for me.
Would you say that's your why? That's your real reason for getting into real estate? Because there's other ways that you can help other people, right? So,
Right.
but you chose real estate investing as that way. Would you say that's the reason?
I'll say my real reason
Yeah.
is to actually change where I came from. I didn't really grow up poor,
Mm-hmm.
but I grew up financially inept.
Okay.
So nobody really taught me about finances. I had to really learn by myself
Mm-hmm.
about how it is. And I knew that after some investigating on like where true wealth comes from,
Mm-hmm.
understood that like if I had a W-2, I'm limited to whatever happens there. And if something happens, for example, COVID happens
Mm-hmm.
and it shuts down all movement,
Everything. Yeah.
then I don't know what to do. Like
Yeah.
there's no residual income coming in. I'm just like living off of what I've already accumulated.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have passive income through real estate, then I could still achieve monthly income
Mm-hmm.
just from what I've already had.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, how did you transition into real estate? Because I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there with backgrounds such as ours where we only get paid when we work.
Mm-hmm.
And even being a stunt performer and action actress, the residual income is not the way that it used to be. It's definitely not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you help others by sharing how you transition into real estate?
Yeah, absolutely. So my line is, or my journey is definitely not linear at all.
Okay.
You mentioned that I knew exactly what I wanted to do at a young age,
Mm-hmm.
which was to fly, and here I am now as a real
As
estate
I said,
investor.
absolutely.
Right. So actually, while I was flying, I decided to actually start a business while I was actually active duty Marine. So I actually joined, or actually started 421 Moto Gear,
Okay.
which was a drop shipping company,
Do you
which
still
is
have that company?
I actually don't. I actually,
Okay. Okay.
I actually shut it down not too long ago, just because it moved to a demographic where it wasn't really suitable
Mm.
for motorcycle riders.
Okay.
And what I tried to do was travel down to San Diego, which is the more affluent
Mm-hmm.
motorcycle community.
Absolutely.
And that was just a huge time out of my day to actually continue forward with it. A lot of gas and not too much profit that I could yield from it.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's definitely ways that I could have made that happen, but I decided, you know what, let me actually transition over towards real estate where I actually feel like this could actually yield a lot of fruit.
Absolutely.
But yeah, while I was in the Marines, I started 421 Moto Gear.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to do was actually have something that I could ironically take with me everywhere.
Yeah.
And that proved to not be true. But I was actually, I think the lesson I learned there was finding a source of advertisement that worked,
Okay.
where regardless of where I was, and I didn't have to physically display products, or maybe just find a way to drop ship, not using something that people are unfamiliar with.
Okay.
But I did want to take advantage, or I did want to capitalize on my time available,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to make sure that I could still prove to myself that I could do something outside of a W-2.
Okay.
There's a little bit of entrepreneurship in me, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to actually go forward with that as opposed to relying on someone else paying my paycheck.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
why did you specifically choose real estate for that?
Yeah. So real estate, I mean, after reading the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, I mean,
Mm.
I saw the benefits from that. And that's what I really wanted to do. Like my parents would occasionally say, yeah, buy real estate, you'll eventually become rich. And
Mm-hmm.
I never understood what that meant, but they never really gave me any financial advice
Got you.
or assistance to say, this is why it happens.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like buzzwords or keywords they would always throw around and say, yeah, well, if you do this and you'll get rich. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Nobody really knew.
Mm-hmm.
So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I also started listening to podcasts. So the person that really got me into real estate to actually push me over the edge, his name was DeRay Olalier.
Never
And
heard of him.
yeah, so he had a podcast called Before the Millions.
Okay.
And he actually told me about creative financing, where you didn't necessarily need to have money in order to buy real estate. You could use processes like subject to or seller finance in order to acquire these properties with no money out of your pocket, because he also mentioned, well, sometimes these properties do need capital in order to acquire, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your capital.
Mm-hmm.
You could use private money lenders, you could use hard money lenders in order for them to subsidize the initial cost up front, and then you could pay them back on the back end based on the rental profits that you've accumulated during that time frame.
Okay. So can you just break down a little bit more how you actually make money
Mm-hmm.
from that process?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say I'll break down a couple categories.
Okay.
So subject to is short for the term subject to the existing financing,
Mm-hmm.
or subject to the existing loan or mortgage, however you define it as. But it's basically a debt that you're assuming. It's
Mm-hmm.
not really an assumption. You're taking over it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if somebody doesn't have that much equity in the house, for example, they just bought it, they wanted to turn it into a short-term rental or Airbnb, and then they move out of state,
Mm-hmm.
and then they realize, oh wow, Airbnbs are really difficult to manage, and I'm actually I'm not filling in the vacancies like I thought I was, and now I'm losing money because now I have a mortgage to pay on my personal house, and I have this second mortgage on my investment that I thought was going to be thriving but isn't,
Mm-hmm.
and now I need to sell it because now it's just burning a hole in my bank account. Well, if they were to sell it on the open market, they're probably going to have to come up out of money in order to get rid of that property. And nobody wants to do that, especially with the Airbnb. And
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I'm saying this is because I know somebody, I know somebody who's going through this
Absolutely.
exact situation,
Yeah.
right? So they just put down like a 20 or 25% down payment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they're turning into an Airbnb, now they're putting in another $30,000 in order to upgrade it, put in a pool, put in like a pool table,
Mm-hmm.
right? Put in like essentially a rec room in there. get all new appliances, all new furniture in order to make this house extremely hospitable. But if it's not performing the way that they want to, well, they just went out like I think it was $75,000 in this case.
That's insane.
And you're telling them, okay, well, I want to get rid of this property, pay more money just to
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like that's just adding insult to injury. Well, how do I profit in this process?
Yeah.
Well, I could just go to them and say, hey, I could take over your mortgage via subject to, and I could pay on your behalf. And then I could give you probably about like maybe $5,000 or $10,000 just to walk away from it. Now, how does that sound to the seller? Would you rather pay 70,000 plus agent commissions, closing costs, and appraisal fees in order to walk away from this process, or get paid $10,000 just to walk away from everything?
And how do you make money from that process?
So usually when I go to either I can buy the property myself, but what I've been doing recently was finding an end buyer. And usually in this case, if it's going to be top dollar, I usually find a homestead buyer, somebody who's actually going to live in the property, who's willing to pay a large amount. And I tell them, hey, this is what it costs to move in. And if they're looking for $10,000, maybe I could say, hey, the entry fee is $15,000 or $20,000. And I can make whatever the difference is from their down payment and what the seller is looking for. And I could keep that as an assignment fee to myself.
Very cool. So where did you learn about this? Because I'm sure there's going to be viewers out there that, you know, this might be pretty intriguing for them. Can you let us know like where we would go to kind of learn something like this?
Absolutely. So the way I learned it is first through DeRay Olalie's Before the Millions podcast. And then that actually took me over to the Bigger Pockets podcast. And then I was listening to them. And then after a while, I finally found Pace Morby. And Pace Morby is a creative financing genius. And through him, I found even better strategies. And then I joined a community of people that actually knew even more about it. So that's my personal way. If you want to look at other ways, obviously YouTube University is a good source. But you don't know about that until somebody actually tells you about it. So any of your viewers who are listening to this, now they have an understanding of what creative financing could entail. But even if you don't know fully, you can just research what is creative financing, and you'll have a plethora of ideas. So it doesn't limit to seller financing or subject to. You could also do wraps. You could do lease options, right? So like, and you could also do things that Pace Morby would say as a Pace Morby method. Or you could do novations, or at the same time, you could do a combination of all of them. Because it's a creative strategy. It's not, real estate is regulated in a sense, but it's not as regulated where you could actually come in with different solutions in order to solve a problem. And ultimately what you want to do is solve a problem.
Absolutely. The only issue that I have is that when you go to YouTube, they only touch on the surface of specific things. They never really do a deep dive. So anyone going to YouTube and just learning for YouTube, I feel like they're only learning like the surface of things.
Right. Absolutely.
If someone wanted to actually learn a little bit more, is there some place that you can kind of recommend them as opposed to YouTube?
Yeah, absolutely. Joining the community. So like I have a sub 2 membership with Pace Morby, and within that membership, it shows you everything of what to do. So it talks about like the documents that you need to have in order to create a novation agreement, or a purchase and sell agreement, or a purchase contract, whatever it is. You know, within that community, they also have subject matter experts who could actually help you with the process and help answer any questions that you may have.
I love that. Now, is this a process that you can learn while still doing something else? Like if you are in a career that you like, is this something that you can do alongside with that career, or is it something that you kind of need to stop what you're doing and just focus on the real estate aspect of it?
Absolutely. No, that's a great question, because I think you could definitely subsidize your time with your W-2, and then at the same time go into real estate investing. You could definitely split up your time. You just have to have a good time management skills.
Absolutely.
Right. So a lot of people in the community actually have a W-2 job, and they're not doing this full time, but they're using the time that they do have available to do real estate investing. And a lot of people actually leverage their time by using people called like virtual assistants. And so what that means is, even though you are on your W-2, so let's say you have a 9 to 5 job, you have virtual assistants making calls on your behalf
That's
while
awesome.
you're at work. And then you could just go home and call up the people that are essentially warm leads at this point.
Hmm.
The virtual assistants will go ahead and qualify leads by saying, hey, are you interested in selling? And they're going to have like the 90% of the no's, where you could take home the 10% of the yeses without going through the whole
I
90%
love
no
it.
list.
I love it. So it's
Mhm.
something that you can do while still pursuing your dream. So, like if
Exactly.
you're an actor or a model or something like that, and that's something that you want to pursue full time, the unfortunate part about that is you only get paid when you work. But by doing something like real estate investing, you can establish passive income so you can get paid for the rest of your life, which is one of the reasons why I actually wanted to bring Brandon on and actually speak about real estate investing and how to create passive income and how you could use that as one of the vehicles to do so. That being said, is it expensive to learn this
It
process?
can be, right? So if you're doing this by yourself, that means you have to learn based on your own mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're joining a community, then you're learning based on everybody else's mistakes. And not everybody is making all those mistakes. You could just learn from this mistake over here, this mistake over here, this mistake over here, incorporate it into yours. Or I don't want to keep it on a negative route, but like
Yeah.
what somebody did well over here, what somebody did well over here, what somebody did well over here,
Mm-hmm.
incorporate that into your strategy and then blossom in that process. So uh, in the beginning, it can be a little expensive depending on which routes you're taking. You can have free options where you're getting a list, and you're going on peoplefinder.com, which is a free resource,
Mm-hmm.
and you can find numbers to addresses that way. They may not be the most accurate, but at least you have a free way to start.
Awesome.
And then you could just write down, take notes, and just figure out like how to do things. Or you could start making it a little bit more efficient by skip tracing, which costs about 10 cents per property.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could use a dialer where instead of hand dialing, now you could reach a lot more people because you're calling more than one person at a time. I mean, some dialers could actually have up to 10 calls or 10 numbers calling at a time.
That's crazy.
I don't recommend that because, I mean, if somebody does pick up, yes, you are talking to one person, but it drops all the other calls.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And if somebody else picks up at nearly the same time, they're
You
just going to
lose
get a
it.
dial tone.
Okay.
Exactly. So I
Gotcha.
usually stick to 3,
Okay.
but that does come with a dollar amount.
Okay.
But if you're trying to hit a lot more people and extend your reach, well, you could do a lot of mailing campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
which costs a lot of money. Obviously, you have postage stamps that's involved with each single letter that you're sending out, or you could do a pay per click
Mm-hmm.
campaign, which is if you've ever gone on Google and see those ads and you're wondering like, how did this get here?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's because somebody's paying for that, right?
Absolutely.
And they're paying every time somebody clicks on it.
So, what would you say would be the cheapest way for someone to actually get involved with something like this?
I would say the cheapest way to get involved is to drive for dollars. And what I mean by that is you're going around your neighborhood, you're looking for properties that actually need help,
Mm-hmm.
right? Looking for dilapidated properties, the ones where the grass is overgrown. Sometimes the windows need to be boarded up. You can see like somebody probably hasn't been living there in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Take down that address, go to peoplefinder.com, and then write down the numbers that are associated with that property and then call them up. And that's a absolutely free way outside of gas.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay.
Oh yeah, gas
Yeah.
is rising. We're looking at. I drive a car that requires 91 octane right now, and the
Oh,
gas is like
that's
570 right
crazy.
now.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, but at least you drive a car that requires 91 octane. So,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I mean, sometimes I regret it.
Absolutely. So,
But yeah.
how have you made any money yet? And how long have you been in real estate investing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't made that much money. I have had one transaction that actually successfully went to the end.
Awesome.
But that did take about, I think, 10 months before that actually happened.
Oh, wow.
And it's funny because what I've been doing, what my personal acquisition strategy is I go and find leads from propstream.com
Mm-hmm.
and I edit them. Right now, I'm looking at low equity on market lists.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I'm doing that is because, similar to the example that I just gave, some people has some sort of problem that they're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to get rid of the property just after purchasing it. And you know for a fact they're not going to be making money, or they may be coming up out of money. So those are good people to actually find to utilize the subject to strategy
Okay.
and get some money in the process if you are planning on assigning it out. Or it could be a process of acquisition for yourself for
Mhm.
portfolio building if you're looking to gain more properties and look for more passive income through renting.
Okay.
But I go through PropStream and find those properties, and I use a dialer to call them. And then you might have to edit this out. What was the question again?
Have you made any money?
Oh,
And have
maybe.
I, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah. It's okay. It's okay.
so I've been doing that process for a while,
Okay.
constantly talking to people, constantly talking to people.
Mm-hmm.
And my first deal actually came from telling my coworker that I did this, and he said, "Oh, awesome!" Coworker being another Marine.
Yeah.
He was getting deployed to Okinawa.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, he said he didn't need the money,
Yeah.
and he was just looking for passive income.
Okay.
I was like, awesome. So now I had to utilize a hybrid strategy where I'm using subject to acquire or take over the mortgage payments,
Mm-hmm.
but the equity that I had in the house, I'm going to seller finance to him.
Very cool.
And what that meant was I'm giving him a down payment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving him monthly payments over a course of time
Mm-hmm.
until his equity is paid off.
Okay.
Yeah,
Very cool. So would you say it takes a little time to start making money in the real estate industry as a real
absolutely.
estate investor?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, you could limit the time frame that's going to take for you to get your first deal
Mm-hmm.
by joining a team who's already established.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing this by yourself, it's going to take a long time.
Okay.
You need to figure out like what are things to say and what are things not to say to somebody who's looking to sell.
Mm-hmm.
How you're actually going to follow up with that person, because it's very, very rare that you're going to actually close a deal on the first call.
Absolutely.
So you're gonna need to build up your pipeline, because you need to have a lot of lists. What
Mm-hmm.
they usually say, out of like a list of 1,000,
Mm-hmm.
you're only going to have 10 people to say yes.
Absolutely.
And out of those 10 people, you're probably only going to have one person that's actually going to take it. And it's not even necessarily true that it's going to take it to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You're probably going to have some pitfalls along the way.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to bump that list up to 2,000.
Absolutely.
But like even 1,000 or 2,000, you're probably only going to have one deal out of that.
Absolutely. But you know what? I love how transparent you're being, because people sometimes, especially the newer generation, they want it and they want it now.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't realize that it sometimes takes a little bit of time to get it, and they want to be successful right away.
Right.
But you went to 4 years of college, 5 years of college, to still take another 5 or 6 years to even make some money. Whereas in real estate investing, it definitely does not take as long a time. It might take 10 months to a year,
Mm-hmm.
but at that end of the 10 months to a year, you're actually making passive income that will last the rest of your life. So I
Right.
feel like if you could just be a little patient and consistent and disciplined in the beginning, you're actually setting yourself up for financial freedom for your future.
Right.
So would you have any advice that you can just share with any of our viewers who might be interested in getting into real estate investing to establish passive income?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say the biggest advice that I could give to you is to be patient and be consistent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you said, like this is not a get rich quick type of investing.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take you some time. And then even if you get your first few deals, it's probably not going to be that much money, but it will give you some motivation to continue. But you have to be consistent with it. It's not calling maybe 1 hour one day and then 2 or 3 days later you're calling 4 hours just to make up for it.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing that track record. So you have to be consistent in what you're doing, and then you have to follow up. Follow up is key. So
The money's in the follow-up.
exactly.
Absolutely.
So I would say there's 3 takeaways for you right there: is be patient, be consistent, and follow up.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure there's other people that are in the military that, might have wanted to figure out a way to make some passive income. And it's so amazing because, even before becoming a real estate investor, he had such an extensive career and was doing something that he loved, but it almost seemed like he felt like something was missing. And he was able to use real estate investing as a tool to not only be able to help other people, but also be able to establish financial freedom for himself, where literally the sky's the limit. There's no limit to how much money he can make, and there's no limit to how many people that he can help. And if ever he's sick or he gets hurt or he's unable to work, he's going to always have money, a stream of passive income coming in for him, so that he doesn't have to worry about putting food on his table, paying his bills, or even just being able to retire and just live a financial freedom life and just enjoy his life. So I'm hoping that this podcast can just help show that there are other ways that you can make money, and you can actually use real estate investing as a way to establish passive income for yourself. And you can do it while you're working or even when you retire. So thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. Thank you, Brandon, for being here.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
So much. Have a good one, guys.